You're listening to Workforce Innovation News, powered by E31. Get ready to hear about all things workforce development and workforce innovation. And now, on to the episode.
Hello, and welcome to WIN, Workforce Innovation News. I am Jamie Korda-Hijawi, the director for E31. Today, I have Paola Velasquez from IMEC with me. She is here to talk about some really cool initiatives and putting perspective into diversity, equity, and inclusion. I've sat in on some of her webinars and breakout sessions before, and I always walk away with a better understanding, a new aha moment, and taking a subject that could be kind of overwhelming and overbearing and turning it into something easily understandable, engaging, and even fun at times too. So I'm excited to have you here today, Paola. Can you go ahead, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you and what you do at IMEC?
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for having me this morning. My name, as you mentioned, is Paola. I work for IMEC as the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in Manufacturing. Been with IMEC a little bit over a year and a half now. It is a new role at IMEC, but it's also a new role across the nation for the Manufacturing Extension Program. So IMEC is part of the National Manufacturing Extension Program Network, and we're based under the Department of Commerce. So we work with small to mid-sized manufacturers in the areas of leadership, development, workforce operations, you name it. We want to be that one-stop shop and really be a resource for small to mid-sized manufacturers to become competitive. And so if we don't have the tools, then we help find them the tools, help find them the resources. So in my role, it's unique in the sense that, again, it's new for IMEC, new across the nation, so we're all learning together. I get to work with a great team of about 54 employees, and we're developing our diversity, equity, and inclusion goals, initiatives, strategies within IMEC, right? So for our internal staff, but then also I get to work with clients. So I get to see both sides. So it's really fascinating. I get to work with clients in their people, culture, development. Not everyone's calling it DEI. Some people don't want to call it DEI, and that's okay. Some people are calling it belonging, and some people are all about the culture and the people. And so it all really aligns. It's the same thing.
I love that IMEC is not only talking the talk, but walking the walk. You guys are offering this as a service to manufacturers in the area, but you're also working on it internally. So that really speaks to the commitment and the value that IMEC sees in making sure that, the company culture is a place of belonging. And I love that you talk about that too, because I feel like ultimately that is the goal of DEI, is that feeling of belonging. So, yeah, go ahead. And for our listeners that hear DEI, and like you said, some people don't even some agencies don't like to call it that. Give a little blurb about what DEI is in the workplace.
Sure. So there's a lot of moving parts, I would say, right? So when we think about our people, our culture, there's increasing lifespans, right? So our demographics are changing. People are retiring at a later stage. So we have multiple people working together, multiple generations working together, right? We all have different experiences in our life, and we're bringing different experiences and ways of working. So that's people, that's diversity. Our demographic shifts. So when you look around you, we don't all look the same anymore, right? So we have a bunch of nations, people that are migrating to the country. So we're working with people with different educational backgrounds. Maybe they have a different language. Maybe English is not their first language, right? Also, companies are starting to work globally, or I shouldn't say starting, they're working more and more globally, right? So they have workforce teams across the nation. So we need to learn, how do we work professionally with other cultures? What may be offensive in one culture may not be offensive in another. So how do we manage that communication and work efficiently? And then we have shifting values. So now, especially after the pandemic, we're seeing more and more people wanting to work for a company where their purpose aligns with the company's purpose, the company's values. So now you see people, when they present at an interview, no longer is it HR or the leadership team interviewing them, but it's vice versa. Now you have the prospective employees interviewing the company. They want to ensure that they align with the values and that it's going to be a great fit for both of them. Right. So there's so many things that are driving the conversation of diversity, equity, and inclusion. When we think of diversity, diversity is the differences and similarities that make us. So it's not just visible, but invisible. And I always like to share the iceberg analogy, right? You have 10% that's visible, 90% is below the waterline. And that's how diversity is. 10% is visible, and then 90% is all those invisible traits. So all our experiences, our education background, our titles, right? Whether we're a single parent, whether we're married, what our religion, all that is that invisible traits that we bring in. And it's so important for us to acknowledge that, because if we want to drive employee engagement, satisfaction, reduce turnover, and we're starting to think of, oh, I want more diversity, more people of color, more females in the organization. If we don't understand our own diversity, when they come on, they're not going to feel like they're well understood, and they may leave. And so that's the diversity piece. When I think of inclusion and belonging are very similar. Inclusion is intentionality. Inclusion is taking that extra step to listen to my employees, right? If I have an engagement survey, I get to hear what do they truly think about our culture. We as a leadership team may think one thing, but our employees are the ones that are actually going to tell us how they feel. And so inclusion helps us take into consideration the different places that they're coming from, right? If I'm a single parent, I may worry about, my children, childcare, transportation, after school activities. And so that might be on my mind when I'm working. And so being able to take into consideration that piece is that inclusion where I can feel like I belong or I'm part of an organization. And then equity is really the piece where we're trying to level the playing field to allow people to be successful. And what I mean by this is, the example I always like to share is if we have a job posting, which many of us now do, right? We have job postings. We solely put it online. That's equality. We put it online. Everyone has access to it. Or so we think everyone has access. But 1.1 million people in Illinois alone don't have a computer in their home. So how are they accessing it? They're probably using their mobile phone. Maybe they're going to the library. But if they're using their mobile phone, is that job posting mobile friendly, right? So we may be eliminating 1.1 million people if we don't have it mobile friendly. So that's just an example of equity. So there's different things that we can do to level that playing field, to open up the doors for more people to participate in our workforce. So that's a brief oversight of DEI.
You know what? But that hits so many amazing points in just those few short seconds of that overview. And I just have like question after question going through my head, just listening to you. And I've heard this before. That's what's so crazy is each time I come up with something else to learn and wonder and try to explore. So it really resonates with me when you say the tip of the iceberg, that diversity, we're just looking at that top 10%, that 90% of, diversity is not something that you see when you look at a person. And I think so much of the conception of what DEI is really focuses on that 10%. Well, we don't discriminate based on how someone looks. No, you don't. And that's wonderful. But there's so many other things that contribute to diversity and the accessibility of like job postings and just spreading the word of positions that are hireable and hiring practices too. While it's not intentionally ever discriminating, it might not be quite as accessible, equitable, or inclusive. So beyond, I guess my question to you that I get a lot that I never handle very well is, well, what can we do to be more inclusive or to try to get a more diverse team? What is the intentionality that would work good in an area for, rural Illinois?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I always think of we need to ensure that we understand diversity, right? Acknowledge it within our own organization first. What does that look like? I would say having our leadership team do an activity around diversity, writing up your own diversity story. You could go online and find some activities. You can partner with us and learn some more. You mentioned that you attended one of our webinars and have also participated in breakout sessions. We do a lot of activities for manufacturers that are online and they're at no cost. So it's an opportunity to engage and truly identify what diversity means for you. The second thing I would say too is, what does it mean for your company? Right? So it's not going to be the same in Chicago as it is going to be in the south of Illinois. It's going to be completely different. And so because it's different, we want to make sure that whenever you're putting together any initiatives around diversity, equity, and inclusion, it aligns with your company's mission and your values. It aligns with the demographic needs that are in your area. And then when you think of hiring people that are more diverse, that is not solely the visible race and gender. There's a lot of organizations that are working with people that are recently released from jail. So those justice impacted individuals, they are receiving education and skills within the jail setting. And when they're released, they have many barriers to be hired, right? Just the fact that they were in jail doesn't allow them sometimes the same access to other people just to have a job interview, right? They're turned away. And so if we open up our mindsets to be more inclusive, we can partner with those organizations to understand, will my environment be safe? My workplace be safe if I partner with you? They work with you to help ensure that your organization understands what it means to work with someone who was recently incarcerated. These are people that are skilled and can offer a lot. There's also, if we think of people with disabilities, and I'm actually thinking of this group because next month we celebrate National Disability Independence Day, right? And that's when it was just in 1990, so not even that long ago, there was the act signed to prevent discrimination for people with disabilities. And that means in the workplace too. When we think of people with disabilities, a lot of business owners automatically think, oh, it's going to cost me a lot, right? I'm going to have to invest a lot of money if I hire someone with a disability. Again, there's a lot of organizations out there that come and help you understand what it's like to work with a person with disabilities. What types of jobs the person with a disability can do. Do I need to change my work layout? Maybe, but maybe not. Maybe it's something as simple as just having job instruction tools written in plain language for the employee to understand it. Something so simple and something that would not just benefit the person with a disability, but it's going to benefit your employees, within your organization already. So those are a few things that can be done.
So right there off the top, there's quite a few things that stand out, and the population with disabilities, the population of reentry citizens, those are exactly the underserved populations, the populations that are facing the most barriers to success and employment that, especially WIOA Title I services are there to serve, but all of the WIOA workforce partners are partners at the Department of Rehabilitation Services, at Department of Employment Services, all of our partners. I think we often get so immersed into our lives of we are providing equity, we are promoting diversity, that it's almost hard to see it, because it's hard to see the forest when you're amongst the trees, or the trees when you're amongst the forest. I'm terrible with those sayings, but one of those. So when we're looking at trying to help companies that we serve as workforce partners, help them understand what diversity is and what the benefits are beyond just having better culture at your workplace, which I think is a big seller. what other benefits are there to employers or even to the employees by having a workplace that really fosters diversity and equity?
Yeah, so retention is the big one, right? So you can retain your employees, but then you're going to be able to hire more people. If you have an organization where people do feel like they belong, that they're heard, that they can contribute, that they feel safe to bring up concerns, then that's going to be shared. Word of mouth is a huge propaganda, right? For a place that I work. And so you'll get referrals. You're going to be able to get more people hired within the organization. If the company's values align with my values, you're going to have people that speak about it. Social media is so big now. So now people are like, I love my work. This is a great place to work. So you're starting to see that promoted within social media. But if you also have an organization that it creates a welcoming environment that's inclusive, creates belonging, employees are going to be not only more committed to stay, but they're going to be feel like they can collaborate more. They can
be more authentic.
Thank you. Yes, they can be more authentic, right? Well, authentic, bring them their full self to work. And so that's going to make them concentrate in the workplace, right? I'm not worried about someone's going to judge me, or I'm going to be harassed, or, if I ask something, that someone's going to think that I'm not as committed to my workplace, right? And we see that where sometimes women are afraid to speak up about, can I leave 30 minutes early because I really need to pick up my child? And so they have that anxiety. And so they may feel like they don't want to say it because they're afraid that they can lose their job. And we wouldn't want to put someone in that situation because, as we know, it's hard to find workers right now. And for 30 minutes, that happens once in a while. Is that really going to, hurt your bottom line? So.
That is a very good point. So as you're talking about word of mouth and how strong it is, and we want to have good word of mouth, it's also reminding me that one of the main ways that a lot of the employers I work with advertise, yes, they do online advertisement, but they say we really rely on word of mouth. We rely on word of mouth, which is great and is going to give the people on the receiving end a pretty good idea of what they're getting into, if this is a good company to work for or not. But there's limitations to word of mouth, that you are going to talk about your experiences with people in your inner circle or just at the edges of your inner circle, that it may not cross into other diverse pools. So beyond, if we really want to try to get a stronger talent pool, a more diverse talent pool, but word of mouth is really just getting kind of the same people as we already have employed right now, what other ways can employers in the area really work to ensure that they're reaching out to a wider array of abilities and all the above?
Yeah. So before I answer that, I'm going to touch on what you mentioned about your circle, right? Word of mouth and how you, it's your circle. There's an activity where it's the circle of trust, right? If you were to identify the 5 people, not family, but the 5 people that you go to most, right? Those are the people that you trust. And then you start looking at those 5 people, you write down their names and you look at them and identify, do they look like you? Do they have the same educational background, same religion, same hobbies? Most likely. And that's okay. I mean, that's who we are. We tend to go to people that are similar to us because then it's easy for us to have those conversations with them. And so what we need to do is expand that circle, right? It's hard. It means that I'm going to have to step out of my comfort zone and go talk to someone about something that I don't know about, or someone that doesn't look like me or has a different religion. And so it is uncomfortable, but that's how we begin to expand our circle and get to know more people. As far as reaching other people and expanding out, we worked with a manufacturer where, just like everyone else, how do we hire? Where do we look for more people? So we started doing kind of just like a check of the area that they were located in, right? What churches are in that area? So kind of shows to the diversity of religion. What supermarkets? And supermarkets can speak to the ethnicities that are in that area. And then by identifying that helps you broaden a little bit more of your circle. If you make those connections with the churches, they're strong advocates for promoting jobs, again, word of mouth, but sometimes they have job boards. And so if you partner with them, you can post your jobs on there. Supermarkets, especially those that are ethnic supermarkets, they tend to have job boards too. So being able to partner with them and asking them, can I post our job postings on there? We did that with the manufacturer, and we're able to identify some good places where we just posted some things. We translated it in other languages if needed. That's another thing that we can do. And that doesn't mean that the person doesn't speak any English. It's just being able to show, again, that equity, allowing them to fully participate in the language that they understand by them reading the job description, what it entails, and identifying, can I do this job? And so those are some of the things. Another place, I was just talking to someone the other day, and I asked them, I go, have you gone to laundromats? When people go to laundromats, they go and do their laundry and they don't leave for 2 hours. They stay there in the laundromat. You have a captive audience. What an opportunity for you to go in there and network. Also, sometimes they have job boards, place to place your job postings. So those are some different ways to kind of think outside the box. And there's many others. Local libraries, that's a trusted resource. Some communities may not know that your company exists, or maybe they're a little bit more hesitant to come in and see if there's a job available, but they feel comfortable with libraries. Libraries traditionally have that trusting environment, welcoming environment. And so partnering with them and even having a hiring event with them where you promote it to the community and they come in, again, walking into an environment, I feel like I'm welcomed. And then I learn of all the positions that are available. Maybe you have a computer available where they can actually fill out the application, and maybe even have 1 or 2 people that are doing interviews on the spot. Another thing that I was thinking of, and this was a colleague of mine who brought it to my attention, is sometimes when we have our job postings, or job interviews, we ask about transportation. But the way that we ask it is, do you have a car available? Do you have a car to get to work? And so we put the word car in there by just eliminating that word and just using transport. Do you have reliable transportation, right? Maybe I don't drive. Maybe it's someone else that drives me. It's reliable. I count on that. Maybe it's the bus. So just kind of thinking of our language too on how we can be more inclusive, right? There's statistics, and I'm not good at keeping numbers in my head, but there's some statistics that show that men, when they see a job posting, even if like 40-50% of it does not, they can't meet all the qualifications, they'll still apply. Women, if they just missed about 10-15% of it, they won't apply. And so we have to start thinking of, how are we writing these job postings? How can we use language that's more inclusive, right? Are there things that we wrote on there that are really necessary, or can they be asked during the interview so that we can maybe invite more people to the interview, and then during the interview, identify whether they're going to be a good fit for the organization? And then I even say, not just a good fit for you, are they adding to your cultural fit, right? Maybe you're looking to expand some, have more diversity of thought, have younger generations join your organization, or more women or more men, depending on the industry you're in, right? And so I think those are some creative ways that we can start thinking outside the box.
I think we need about 4 more hours, because I have so many questions and so many things I want to talk about. We are pre-qualifying people a lot if we just keep doing the same job descriptions without that intentionality and that thought of the messaging. We're pre-qualifying them or pre-denying them, basically. You're right. I've seen the same statistics, and I've gone through the same thing myself as a woman, I'll look at a job description. Oh, I don't meet that 100%. I'm not worthy. I'm not going to waste my time. I'm not going to waste their time. And yeah, so I lived experience right there, and there's so much I want to talk about, but what I'm going to cut to now is IMEC is a resource for manufacturers.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you guys can provide DEI wise, that kind of training for non-manufacturing businesses, and how does just the whole concept of diversity, equity, inclusion that you've talked about, how does that translate to other industries, if at all?
Yeah, so it does. It translates to other industries, right? So the conversation is everywhere. I was in healthcare for 18 years, and I'm in a different industry right now, and it translates actually to the conversation we just had. When I applied for this job, did I have all the qualifications? By my title, no, but by the task I was doing in healthcare, yes. And so how could I translate that and into my resume? I had to really look at the language that I use and ensure that, it's not my title that you're hiring me for, but the task. Fortunately, IMEC looks beyond just the title, and they have a great process of interviewing where they ask great questions, and they are looking for people that can add to the culture. So I was very fortunate in that aspect. So as far as what we offer for non-manufacturers right now, the podcast is an example, right? You mentioned it. WIOA has so many different pieces, right? And working together is what strengthens us. And so that's IMEC's mission too, being able to have partners where we can strengthen each other. So I've gone to work with some of the community colleges and provided some presentations at community college. Same thing, just trying to create that education and awareness of what is DEI and why are we so afraid to talk about DEI? How do we make it comfortable for us? And maybe I don't want to call it DEI too. Maybe I want to call it belonging. Maybe I want to call it people or culture. That's okay too. But having these conversations with different partners is so helpful so that we can align and feel comfortable speaking with the people that we're working with, not just our own employees, but the people that we're providing the services to, right? Making the connections is important. So for IMEC, having the resources, knowing what partners are out there. So we're working with many, but I'm sure there's many more that we're not familiar with. Today, actually, we're having a webinar and we're partnering with the Department of Rehabilitation Services to talk about hiring people with diverse skill, individuals with disabilities. So as we meet those people, or spreading the word of what IMEC is doing and being able to connect us to those resources is helpful, because then we can grow together is, I guess, what I want to say. We can grow together, strengthen Illinois' equity gap together, and reach more people together.
I love it. That is wonderful. I'm going to take a clip of that and I'm going to use it like a commercial and just play it after all of everything that we do. So very well said. And I think this was a really good conversation for like DEI and Belonging 101. I think we may have another episode in our future. So I really appreciate you being here. What is a parting thought that you want to give to any of our listeners, whether it's just how they can contact you, where they can get more information, or anything exciting you have coming up? Any parting thoughts?
Yeah, so our website is imec.org, so Illinois Manufacturing Excellence Center. On that page, you can find a list of events that we're hosting, in person, virtual. As I mentioned, many of those are at no cost, and really it's to help Illinois' economy grow. So I invite you to participate. There's also, if you browse in there, you'll see success stories, things that we're doing, experts we have in-house, and then also ways that you can contact us. There's a page where you'll see all our employees listed with our contact information. So just clicking on that, you can connect. I'm also on social media. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me there. I think I'm with my middle name. So I think it's Paola Andrea Velasquez. So I think you have to look for it through all that. But I just want to end by saying that, last year IMEC assisted over 1,800 manufacturers. And our goal is to continue growing. And so it's so wonderful to be able to participate in this podcast, because this is going to help us also share who IMEC is and what we're doing. And also, almost forgot to say too. So we also have grants available on the website. So if you go on right now, we have one in the suburban Cook County. And then we closed one recently in McHenry County. So, that's always changing. So don't just go and visit our website once, go back to it and revisit it and see what's out there. So yeah, thank you so much, Jamie, for the time.
Thank you. Love having IMEC as a partner in our workforce efforts, and so very thankful that you were able to make some time for me today. So with that, thank you and goodbye, listeners. See you later.
You've been listening to Workforce Innovation News powered by LWIA 23. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. To learn more about LWIA 23, visit lwa23.net.